Hey there, thanks for tuning in to DuckBricks. I'm Chris and welcome to a brand new episode of Ninjago Retold, the show where I tell the entire Ninjago story from the beginning to the end in chronological order. So last time we covered the prologue of Ninjago, so please do check that out in the description below if you have not already. That is pretty much required viewing for this episode, although I will recap the most important items to note for this particular episode at the beginning. Although you may be a little confused if you didn't watch the prologue, so do watch that before watching this one. I can't wait to get started because this episode covers most of the events of the pilot seasons, also factoring in some of the mini-movies that are canon to the pilot season, and some other supplemental material like flashbacks from future seasons, even stuff from season 8 and season 13, that showed events that happened either directly before or during the pilot seasons. Again, this is in chronological order, so expect major spoilers for the entirety of Ninjago's run. There are some secrets that were revealed throughout the show's history that were years in the making that unfortunately I will just be spoiling because I am telling this in chronological timeline order. So again, if you want to experience Ninjago the way it was meant to be seen, I do recommend that you go over to, say, Netflix and just watch the episodes yourselves. It'll take you a lot more time, but if you do want to enjoy the story, that's the way to do it. But if you're just looking for a condensed timeline summary, a slight dramatic retelling of Ninjago's story, then you're in the right place, and let's get started with Ninjago Retold. Previously on Ninjago Retold. Birth of a new multiverse. In an explosion of light and life, the 16 interconnected realms come into being, first of which being the primordial realm of Oni and Dragon, where forces of light and darkness battle for all eternity. When a hybrid is born of both good and evil, this first Spinjitzu master forges his own path, defeating the terrible serpent Wojira in the realm of Ninjago, and using 4 golden weapons of creation to reshape and populate the land. As generations of elemental masters rise and fall alongside the powerful Serpentine, new kingdoms, peoples, and cultures evolve in this world of Ninjago, including Wu and Garmadon, sons of the Spinjitzu master. But when Garmadon's Oni side overtakes him and he betrays Wu, he is cast into the Underworld, seizing control of an army of undead Skulkin and setting his sights on the golden weapons for himself. The fate of Ninjago now rests in the hands of the aging Master Wu and 6 promising pupils of the elements, and their story will become legend. This is Ninjago Retold.
You're a long way from finding a ninja in these parts, old man.
Lloyd is the Green Ninja.
I am the ultimate Spinjitzu master!
Support me, friends, for one last time.
The new Serpentine War has just begun.
My master has arrived.
Guess it's true. The greatest love stories do always end in tragedy.
Maybe I'm departed.
Control time! Control everything!
I have no son.
I cannot fight you, but I can resist you.
Endings will always come. All we can do is fight to make them good ones.
Revenge!
Protect those who cannot protect themselves.
You were programmed by the game to lose, but you don't have to.
I want you to promise me that you will always stand up to those who are cruel.
We are the keepers of the amulet.
I am. I am the sea. We are one.
There will be peace in the dark.
Episode 1, The Golden Weapons. Chapter 1, Birth of Legends. Our story begins in the realm of Ninjago, one of the many interconnected worlds existing across the ethereal divide. With the Great Serpentine Wars finally over and the alliance of elemental masters disbanded and retired, Ninjago was finally at peace. Borg and Vast Industries pioneered the growth of Ninjago City, now a vast metropolis filled with skyscrapers, technological wonders, and bustling streets. The far-off golden kingdom of Shintaro prospered, boasting riches beyond imagination shared amongst the skyfolk and their kin. After decades sealed away, the serpentine tombs across Ninjago lay isolated and forgotten, a relic of darker times past. The Keepers continued to protect the Storm Amulet, Wojira deep in slumber at the bottom of the Tartarus Trench, guarded by the undersea Merlopian warriors across the endless sea. Trapped in the Teapot of Tyran, the pirate captains of old were sealed away, unable to terrorize Ninjago again. And marooned on an inhospitable island, Master Chen grew older and older, unable to influence the mainland beyond. And yet, evil still lurked in the darkness, biding its time and waiting to strike. In the swamps of Ninjago and even in the walls of the Great Ninjago Museum of History, former Elemental Master of Time Crux continued to grow his Vermilion army, still forcing the old Elemental Masters of Fire and Water, Rei and Maya, to produce terrible machines of war for his army. In the far-off Neverrealm, the displaced stranger from the future continued to rule as the Ice Emperor with an iron grip. The secret dungeons below Shintaro in the realm of Ninjago were enslaved by the vicious Skull Sorcerer, mining for the riches beneath and spreading Vengestone, the powerful rock that neuters elemental powers, to scum and villainy across the land. Across the Desert of Doom, the ancient serpentine pyramid of the valley lay buried under tons of sand, the treacherous Hypnobria Sphera still magically entombed within its walls. Deep within the endless sea, the Merlopian Kalmar was born to the royal family, gaining a deadly ambition to one day reawaken the world serpent Wojira and plunge Ninjago into the churning waves of the ocean once more, as it was in the before time. In the Cursed Realm, Wu's former pupil Maro, Master of Wind, climbed the ranks, winning more and more dark souls to his favor while promising to one day take his revenge on Wu and the realm of Ninjago. The artificial intelligence ruling over the digital world of Prime Empire, Unagami, continued to learn and grow, its sights set on still breaching through the real world. On Haunted Hill, the now ghostly and bitter Master Yang remained bound to his old temple of Erjitsu with his cursed legion of pupils, forcibly converting all who stepped foot on the premises after dark into a ghost. And most of all, the Overlord still lurked on what remained of the Dark Island, biding his time and growing stronger by the day, his terrible stone army still entombed below the streets of Ninjago City. But the threat most paramount to Master Wu, now an old man with a long white beard, was his very brother, Lord Garmadon, who had been cast into the Underworld so many years ago. Having sent Lily, the old elemental master of Earth, to learn of Garmadon's plans so many years ago, Wu now knew just how dangerous his brother had become, and the army of disgraced warrior Skulkin he now commanded. With the might of the skeleton warriors and the deadly vehicles made by the Tinkerer, Dr. Julian, who was forced to work for the legions of evil, Garmadon was readying for war, and this is where our story truly begins. After Master Wu hid the golden weapons all around the world of Ninjago, he entrusted the map to the golden weapons to Rei and Maya, original elemental masters of fire and water. But once they were kidnapped by Crux, knowledge of this map was lost, and their children, Kai and Nia, grew up unaware that this ancient map was hidden away in their very blacksmith shop. With what remained of the elemental masters scattered across Ninjago, either retired, dead, or missing, it was time for a new generation of heroes to come to the forefront and defend Ninjago, with threats rising from every corner of the realm. And so, Master Wu set off on a noble quest to unite the children of the core elemental masters: Cole, son of Lillian Lau and Master of Earth; Jay, son of the Master of Lightning and actor Cliff Gordon; Zane, Ninjoid son of Dr. Julian and inheritor of the Power of Ice; Kai and Nia, children of Rei and Maya, masters of fire and water; and Lloyd Montgomery Garmadon, son of Wu's brother Garmadon and Misako, now curator of the Museum of History. First to be recruited was Cole, Still mourning the passing of his mother Lily, Cole found himself more and more estranged from his father Lau, who had thrown himself into singing and dancing with his band, the Royal Blacksmiths, following the death of his wife. Left at home to maintain the household while his dad was away, Cole began to venture further and further outside his village, eventually lying to his father and claiming he had gone off to study dance at the Marty Oppenheimer School of Performing Arts, while he was actually honing his body and strength, climbing impossibly tall mountains and scaling cliffs and valleys for fun. And on one fateful morning, Cole made his way to the top of one of the tallest peaks in Ninjago, only to find an old man, Master Wu, waiting for him atop the cliff. On this isolated, snowy peak, Wu spoke with Cole, asking why he climbed the mountain, upon which Cole opened up to him, explaining his frustrations with his father and how he chose to deal with his grief. As Master Wu explained that everyone deals with grief differently, Cole realized his father's way of coping was by throwing himself into song and dance, and his own way was aimlessly climbing mountains. Ultimately seeking a greater purpose in life, Cole agreed to join Master Wu and led a team of ninja against the forces of evil in Ninjago, taking the first step in a long journey to fulfill his mother's dying wish for Cole to one day become a hero for the realm. As Cole began training and living at Wu's monastery of Spinjitzu, 3 more pupils were found and invited to join the cause. Jay, son of famous actor Cliff Gordon and original Master of Lightning, was left on the door of a junkyard following a mysterious event that forced his parents to have to give him up, and the Master of Lightning to be lost forever. Taken in by Ed and Edna, the couple who ran the junkyard, Jay grew up unaware that he was adopted, inheriting a love and passion for tinkering and building from his adoptive parents. Once he had grown into his teenage years, Jay was a daredevil inventor, constantly testing outlandish devices and using raw metals and fabric from the junkyard to build contraptions of movement and flight. With a pair of glider wings quickly becoming one of his most favorite inventions, Jay was testing the suit for the 6th time when he smashed into a billboard in Ninjago City yet again, and grew increasingly frustrated with his suit, which he declared as impossibly hard to get right. But that day on the rooftop, Jay was greeted by Master Wu, who promised him that he in turn was building the impossible itself, and invited Jay to join the team. And so, this new Master of Lightning soon found himself training alongside Cole at the monastery, as Wu continued to recruit more students. Next up was the robotic ninjroid Zane, who had forgotten his past and wandered the realm of Ninjago in search for a purpose, performing superhuman feats and astonishing villagers with his ability to hold his breath for inhuman lengths underwater. Zane was meditating at the bottom of a frozen pond where he encountered Wu alongside him, who promised a much greater purpose in life. Driven by his mission to protect those who cannot protect themselves, Zane agreed to join the team, and then there were 3. But the 4th member, Kai, would be much harder to convince. Having taken up running the 4-weapons blacksmith shop following the disappearance of his parents Ray and Maya, Kai worked alongside his sister Nia to maintain the shop, earning a humble keep for themselves as they operated out of Ignatia Village. When Wu approached Kai, urging him to find the fire within, Kai refused, wanting nothing more than to focus on his future as an expert blacksmith. And so, Wu left the village of Ignatia, promising to return when the time was right, and retreating to the monastery of Spinjitzu, where he trained Cole, Jay, and Zane in the art of the ninja. But darkness was brewing in the Underworld, and right as Wu was beginning to train and hone the skills of his 3 new ninja recruits, Garmadon was in turn prepping the Skulkin legions for an attack on Ninjago to reclaim the legendary golden weapons, and use the dragon-like power of creation imbued in them to reshape the land in his own image. Chapter 2: Vengeance of the Skulkin. The time had come. Decades of peace in Ninjago were about to be shattered as the Skulkin of the Underworld took arms and hurtled into the realm of Ninjago. Opening rifts and gateways between realms with their supernatural vehicles, Skulkins poured forth from every gateway and terrible motorbikes, tanks, and trucks, all commanded by Lord Garmadon, who now wore a helmet of bone to signify his control over the skeletal legions. Led by Generals Samakai, Cruncha, Knuckle, and Whiplash, these armies scoured the lands for the golden weapons, and first on their list of targets was Kai and Nia's 4-weapons blacksmith shop, for Garmadon had somehow learned of where Wu had hidden the map, and was determined to use all the might of the Underworld to claim it for himself. Day turned to night as ghoulish vehicles raced across the landscape, hurtling towards the village of Ignatia. As the Skulkin arrived at the blacksmith shop, Kai and Nia bravely fought back. Despite lacking training or practice, the siblings managed to beat back many of the skeleton warriors using their homemade weapons, until the four-armed Samukai himself joined the fray, quickly disarming Kai and pinning him to the ground. And just when all seemed lost, in a flash of light and energy, Wu swept over Samukai with the power of Spinjitzu, dueling the undead general while Kai and Nia looked on. But in the commotion, Skulkin Generals Cruncha and Knuckle managed to seize the map to the golden weapons, and with their mission completed, the Skulkin began to retreat from the village. As Wu was occupied with ensuring Kai's safety, Samukai managed to kidnap Nia and whisk her off into places unknown, under direct orders from Garmadon in a secret bid to claim the golden weapons for himself. And so, almost as quickly as it began, the battle was over, with Garmadon claiming his first victory over the realm of Ninjago. Enraged, Kai lashed out at Wu, who in turn put the young trainee in his place, telling him the dire need for heroes and ninja in the realm, and the threat of his brother, Lord Garmadon, who sought to plunge the world into darkness, the Oni side of him in full control. Explaining the legend of the first Spinjitzu master and the power of the golden weapons, Wu began to illustrate just how dangerous this threat was to Kai, who needed no further motivation to accept the old master's offer to train as a ninja and to save his sister. And so, while Cole, Jay, and Zane were still out on a training mission, Wu brought Kai back to the Grand Monastery of Spinjitzu atop the mountains of impossible height. There, Kai made his way through an imposing gauntlet, honing his body, mind, and agility to slowly but surely overcome each obstacle and begin to unlock his potential. And as the days grew long, the Skulkin made haste to acquire the weapons of Spinjitzu for Lord Garmadon, and the first battle the brave ninja would face was about to begin. As Kai finished his training and mastered the obstacle course, Jay, Cole, and Zane returned from their first mission, ambushing Kai in his sleep while mistaking him for an intruder. In a brief skirmish, the four ninja trainees clashed, still unfocused and undisciplined. And just as Kai was about to be overwhelmed by the rest of the three ninja, Wu rushed out, introducing the ninja to each other for the first time, and bestowing new colorful robes to each warrior, signifying the power of the elements still buried deep within them. Zane, robotic ninjroid and powerful seer, would be the master of ice. Jay, wisecracking inventor and jokester, would become the master of lightning. Cole, solid and firm cake-loving leader, would be the master of earth. And the ambitious and hot-headed Kai would one day be the master of fire. Together, Kai, Jay, Zane, and Cole were Wu's first pupils in over a generation, and would soon be thrust into the most thrilling adventure of a lifetime. And so, the four ninja began to live and train together, Kai's thoughts still occupied with saving his sister. As they told tales of how Wu recruited them and bonded as a team, the ninja would soon be sent on their first mission, to recover the first of the four golden weapons, and venture into the desolate caves of despair for the first time, where the Skulkin had already set up camp and began excavations. The time for quests and adventure was upon them, and the ninja were as ready as they could be for their first real mission. Chapter 3: Quest for the Golden Weapons. And so, as the sun dawned on the Skulkin excavation camps around the Caves of Despair, the four new ninja arrived on the scene, silently infiltrating the camp to uncover the secret resting place of the first of the four weapons, the Scythe of Quakes. Their mission, to recover the scythe before the Skulkin, but to not, under any circumstances, use the devastating power of the weapon. But in his impatience to save Nia, Kai rushed in without his comrades, forcing them to follow behind him, and nearly jeopardizing the entire mission. Despite the warnings of Cole, Kai continued onwards, brazenly rushing past the Skulkin into the Caves of Despair, with the rest of the ninja left with no choice but to follow suit. Making their way past the Skulkin legions and entering the inner sanctum of the mines within the caves, the ninja finally arrived at an ancient stone temple. Statues of heroes and villains past adorned the walls, and the light from torches illuminated the carved-out space. And directly in the center, placed on a vertical pedestal, was the legendary Scythe of Quakes, which would allow its user to wield the very power of Earth itself, even without having to be an elemental master. But as the ninja claimed the scythe and rushed out of the temple, ancient mechanisms, cogs, and gears began to awaken the mighty Earth Dragon, sworn to protect the scythe, and the Skulkin were waiting just outside to ambush our 4 heroes. Overwhelmed by opponents, the ninja prepared to put up a brave fight, but just then, Jay began to notice a pattern of attacks, hearkening the Skulkin legions back to the very obstacles they trained with at the monastery's dojo. And so, fighting in a blur of blades, kicks, and punches, Jay leapt from enemy to enemy, harnessing a stunning tornado of blue lightning that obliterated all who crossed him, and becoming the first of the 4 ninja to perform the ancient art of Spinjitzu. As Jay's teammates observed him, one by one they each began to pattern his movements, Zane summoning the might of the blizzard in a freezing whirlwind of ice, Cole generating shockwaves and tornadoes of rock and earth, and Kai transforming into a whirlwind vortex of flames and heat. Together, these new masters of Spinjitzu rushed over the Skulkin in an elemental cascade, sweeping away their opponents and forcing Samakai to pull his forces out of the caves. But just as the fight appeared to be over, the ninja soon realized they had forgotten the most deadly opponent of all, the mighty Earth Dragon, protector and guardian of the Scythe of Quakes. And so, as the ninja prepared to fight, Kai rashly seized the scythe and, despite his comrades warning him against it, plunged the weapon into the ground, triggering a cataclysmic earthquake that temporarily stunned the beast and allowed the ninja to escape. Making their way to the surface, the ninja's celebrations were cut short when Wu, furious that they had disobeyed him, berated Kai for thinking he was better than his teammates, and the 4 ninjas solemnly set off to their next quest. Back in the Underworld, Samakai had returned bearing news of their loss to Lord Garmadon, who inexplicably was pleased that the ninja had obtained the scythe, for according to him, everything was going according to his dark plan. As the days passed on, the ninja journeyed to far-off lands and faced trials beyond imagination to claim the weapons and beat the Skulkin to the prize. Venturing to the icy, barren wastelands north of Ninjago, the team sailed to an icy castle, a foreboding fortress of snow which housed the legendary Shurikens of ice. On their journey, Wu explained to them that when Spinjitzu users act as one, they could combine their vortexes to summon the awesome might of the Tornado of Creation, a blinding whirlwind which housed the raw, creative energy of the dragons. But this power was a long way from being unlocked, and there were many trials ahead of the young heroes. And so, with the knowledge of future power to come, the 4 ninja ventured into the Temple of Ice. Passing frozen Skulkin and mysterious shards of crystal, the team eventually made their way to the epicenter of the structure, a shrine dedicated to the mysterious floating Shurikens of Ice. And just as Zane claimed his weapons and the ninja prepared to leave, the ice dragon above them awoke, freezing him solid in an instant. Forced to flee, the ninja whisked away their now frozen friend and sped out of the temple, the second golden weapon obtained. Next on their journey were the powerful and volatile nunchucks of lightning. Venturing to the abandoned lightning ruins, the ninja swooped in on gliders, snatching the golden artifacts right before Samakai and the Skulkin managed to claim the weapons for themselves. And yet, the skeletal leader was pleased, for it was Garmadon's exact plan that the ninja obtained the 4 weapons. And with 3 of 4 weapons in their possession, Kai, Cole, Zane, Jay, and Wu shared a brief moment of respite and peace as they prepared to claim the final weapon by morning. Bonding together as a team, Zane, Cole, Jay, and Wu danced and laughed together by the campfire. Yet Kai was still apprehensive, his thoughts occupied with saving his sister, Nia. But what the ninja did not know was that at this very moment, Garmadon was watching their every move through the shadows, picking at the weak links in the team, and targeting the rash fire ninja Kai for his next plot. And so, as night descended on the forest and the team drifted off to sleep, Garmadon sent forth a dark illusion of Nia to ensnare Kai, tricking him into following her form to the grand Temple of Fire nearby in the Forest of Tranquility, hiding place of the Sword of Fire. Since Lord Garmadon had been banished to the Underworld, he was unable to cross over to the realm of Ninjago, and yet his Oni power over shadows and darkness could influence the realm of the living, and as Kai rushed to the temple, he left his comrades and the first 3 golden weapons unguarded. Making his way to the base of an active volcano, Kai called out for his sister, soon discovering Garmadon's forces had truly chained her above a pit of boiling lava, forcing him to claim the Sword of Fire from its pedestal himself and slash the chain, finally saving his sister, but falling right into Garmadon's trap. And so, as shadows stretched and darkness engulfed the temple, the very darkness sprang to life, Kai's own shadow acting as an extension of Garmadon's reach. Swiftly, the Dark Lord defeated Kai, claiming the Sword of Fire, and just as he was about to declare victory, Sensei Wu leapt onto the scene, using his own shadow to combat the might of Garmadon's, and using the Sword of Fire to beat back the shadows of evil. Just then, Garmadon called for the mighty Fire Dragon to awake, sworn protector of the sword, who blocked the entrance to the temple, condemning the ninja to their fate. And so, Wu made a dangerous gambit. Seizing the Sword of Fire, he rushed back to the lava falls beneath the temple, and made a beeline for the secret inter-realm portal between Ninjago and the Underworld housed within the Temple of Fire to confront Garmadon on his own turf. And so, with Kai and Nia left to fend off the Fire Dragon on their own and Wu descended into the Underworld, the rest of the ninja were left unprepared, and were ambushed by Samakai and his forces, who seized the rest of the golden weapons and were commanded by Garmadon to return to the Underworld. But even after Jay used quick thinking to covertly steal a bone sword and free his comrades, the ninja were unable to catch up to the Skulkin. Chasing the bony vehicles through the long corridors of the Forest of Tranquility, Jay, Zane, and Cole fought valiantly to prevent the Skulkin from returning to the Underworld. But the speed of the arcane vehicles was too powerful to overcome, and soon enough, it was over, with the three ninja defeated and Samakai having claimed the weapons of ice, earth, and lightning, just as Lord Garmadon had planned. Defeated, bruised, and reeling from Garmadon's attacks, the ninja had now lost all 4 golden weapons, and they would have to descend into realms unknown and journey to worlds forgotten to reclaim their weapons and their sensei. Chapter 4: Into the Underworld. As Wu crossed the ethereal divide and found himself in the desolate, grimy underworld, Kai and Nia were cornered by the Fire Dragon, and the remaining ninja had just faced humiliating defeat at the hands of Samakai and the Skulkin warriors. The cards were set for Garmadon to finally claim the 4 weapons and reshape the land of Ninjago, and the stakes had never been higher. Thinking fast, Kai and Nia attempted to calm the dragon together, managing to harness the mighty beast and wrest control over the fearsome creature. Together, the pair burst forth from the Temple of Fire in stunning fashion, riding on the back of the majestic Dragon of Fire they named Flame, and providing the first chance the ninja had to reclaim the weapons and save their master. And so, the rest of the 3 ninjas split off to tame their individual dragons, Jay building a machine to amplify the roar of his lightning dragon Wisp to tame the creature, Zane convincing his ice dragon Shard with logic, and Cole overcoming his fear of dragons to forge a strong emotional bond with the earth dragon he named Rocky. With all 4 dragons tamed, the ninja donned new Dragon Master suits to reflect their command over the primordial creatures, and soared off into the sky, promising to return to Ninjago with their master and the golden weapons. And so, the dragons leapt into action, using their unique dragon ability to cross between realms, funneling into powerful tornadoes of light and creation, ripping open the ethereal divide and traversing the caves of the underworld to make their way to the realm of the disgraced. Arriving in a burst of energy, the 4 warriors found themselves on the precipice of a dangling cliff in the underworld, surrounded by ghastly bone spiders and Skulkin legions gathered in front of Garmadon's dark fortress. With any attempts at stealth now disregarded, the 4 ninjas soon found themselves surrounded by these grisly legions. Wu, Garmadon, and Samakai still nowhere in sight. Just then, Jay had a radical idea: attempt to form the legendary Tornado of Creation, volatile Spinjitzu move that combined all 4 tornadoes into a whirlwind of creativity. While the rest of the ninja were wary, they soon realized they had no other choice. Kai formed his whirling vortex of fire, Zane summoned a hurricane of ice, Jay transformed into a raging ball of lightning, and Cole moved the very earth as the 4 ninja pooled their elemental tornadoes, and in a flash of raw elemental power, the Tornado of Creation was formed. Sucking terrified Skulkins, spiders, and raw materials into its vortex, the tornado swept over Garmadon's fortress, leaving a whimsical Ferris wheel of bone in its place, Skulkin warriors caged inside. And with the skeletal army dealt with, the ninja had no time to spare. Rushing into the throne room of the Underworld, they found Wu and Samukai pitted in a deadly battle, with no way to help their master against the might of the Dark General. Weapons of Spinjitzu clashed as Wu bravely parried the might of Samukai's forceful attacks with his lone sword of fire, dodging blasts of raw ice and lightning as the very ground beneath him began to split open with the power of the Scythe of Quakes. But soon enough, even all of Wu's might was unable to fight back against the power of 3 golden weapons in the hands of a skilled combatant, and the old master was beaten back, losing the Sword of Fire. As Garmadon watched on from his throne, the greedy Samukai seized all 4 weapons for himself, threatening to take back the Underworld throne. But to the warlord's dismay, the weapons began to glow. Explaining that no mortal being can hold all 4 weapons at once, Garmadon only laughed as Samukai began to hover midair, consumed by the energies of the golden weapons. Bones rattling against muscle, and lightning spewing from every direction, Samukai was disoriented, afraid, and begging for mercy. Just as the weapons shone a brilliant white, and the former Skulkin leader was disintegrated on the spot, his soul sent to the departed realm for good. And in his place was a dark and twisted realm portal, an after effect of the combined energies of the golden weapons leading directly to the realm of madness, the world of darkness where evil thrived in imbalance. Overjoyed at his triumph, Garmadon stopped only to promise Wu and the ninja he would return, then threw himself into the portal, leaving the golden weapons but finally managing to escape his cursed life in the Underworld after so many long years. And so, with the battle won and Garmadon still at large, the ninja rushed to comfort Wu, who was still reeling from his injuries in the battle against Samukai. Rushing back up to the realm of Ninjago on their dragons, Kai, Jay, Zane, Cole, and Wu made landfall in Ignatia Village, where they were greeted by Nia, who had been awaiting their return. And as villagers and civilians cheered and celebrated the ninja, Kai remained solemn, for he knew that Garmadon had not been defeated, and their most dangerous battle was yet to come. But soon, as the rush of the cheering crowd overwhelmed the ninja, the 4 pupils and their master found themselves at peace, for they had averted the current crisis and scattered the Skulkin threat for good. And when Lord Garmadon returned, they promised to be ready. But that's a story for another time, and thus ends Chapter 1, The Golden Weapons. Stay tuned for Chapter 2, Rise of the Serpentine, coming very soon.
Alright, and with that, we have summed up Episode 1 of Ninjago Retold, The Golden Weapons. Stay tuned for next time because, again, we will be publishing future episodes based on each subsequent season, special, and even comic trilogy of the show itself. And do let me know down in the comments below, did you like this, did you dislike it, and do you have any recommendations for future Ninjago videos? Thank you so much for your attention. I do hope you enjoyed this episode of Ninjago Retold, and tune into DuckBricks for even more LEGO news, reviews, discussion, and analyses coming your way very soon. Bye bye for now.